Inside the album. More info at fullandbloom.com. Ozzy Osbourne released Speak of the Devil on November 30th, 1982. The double album featured live performances of songs from Osbourne's former band, Black Sabbath. It was certified gold on January 24, 1983, and later certified platinum on August 11, 1992.
Anyone that's looking slightly normal is not allowed in.
A number of considerations led to the decision to release the double album. One popular theory was that Black Sabbath's publishing agreement with their former manager had ended, and re-recording the songs would enable Osbourne and all the other songwriters to receive publishing income for the first time. Furthermore, there was a rumor that Don Arden's label, Jet Records, had negotiated a distribution deal with CBS Records and had already received an advance payment on future earnings. Alongside business considerations, Black Sabbath was also preparing to release its own live album, prompting Osbourne's desire to have his album in stores first.
Speak of the Devil. I was standing on the front of the album cover with cranberry sauce coming out my mouth.
Okay.
I thought, what a great thing to put out in America for Thanksgiving Day. Me standing on the front of an album cover with cranberry sauce. And the record company
Makes me want to dive right into a turkey dinner.
fangs and all that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, it's all sentimental, you know, whatever you want to say. And the record company put a label at first over my mouth. That was like, you know.
And that's the way it was released.
Yeah.
So what happens if somebody goes out and finds one of the album covers without the label? They've got a collector's item.
No.
No? That's what used to happen with a lot of the old Beatles.
The one who's got the album cover with the sticker on has got a collector's item.
Because you didn't let them release it that way.
They did release a certain amount, but I stopped that as soon as I could because, I mean, I am what I am. The record company makes a lot of dough out of people like me, you know.
Well, when you call a record Speak of the Devil, people naturally, those religious folks, get upset about it.
Why?
When the idea to record an album of Black Sabbath covers was presented to the band, it was not well received. Initially, guitarist Randy Rhoads and drummer Tommy Aldridge decided they did not want to work on the project, believing it would be a step backwards to record an album of Sabbath covers. After expressing their viewpoint to Rudy Sarzo, the bassist decided to stand with his bandmates despite not feeling totally at ease doing so. Once Sarzo was in agreement, the trio informed manager Sharon of their decision. While Sharon seemed to take the news relatively well, Ozzy was furious and responded by going on what Sarzo described in his book, Off the Rails, as Ozzy's worst drinking binges he had ever witnessed. Each day, Ozzy pushed Randy's buttons as we traveled within a suffocating, tension-filled tour bus, Sarzo said. I spoke to Frank Zappa and Gary Moore today, and they're both willing to play on the record, Ozzy slurred. Great, that's fine with me, Randy replied. It was during this period that Osbourne was infamously arrested for drunkenly urinating on the Alamo. Several hours prior to the Alamo incident, Osbourne fired the entire band, including Rhoads. All you guys are fired. I want you the fuck off my bus right now, Ozzy screamed. On February 20th, soon after Osbourne was released from jail, the band arrived in Dallas to play a show at Reunion Arena. Rhoads came to the band and said, "Guys, we need to talk. I had a meeting with Ozzy and I've agreed to play on the record, but with one condition, that after I've fulfilled my commitments to the live album, I would record one more studio album and do one more tour. That's it. After that, I'm going back to school to get my master's degree in music." Although Randy revealed his plan to exit the group that day, according to Tommy Aldridge, the guitarist expressed his doubts about remaining with Ozzy long before the live album incident. No one knew it at the time, but he was going through some experiences, Aldridge said. I remember when we were in Shepherd's Bush rehearsing for a tour, Randy was talking to me about how frustrated he was musically. And this was before we even toured, before Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, before any of that. Randy was unhappy about what was going on. He was expressing some frustration that he had signed some things that might come back to haunt him. And because of my experience in that, with the mistakes I made, he kind of confided in me a little bit. Speak of the Devil was originally scheduled to be recorded at Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens, the show complete with half-naked girls on stage and what Sharon anticipated would be the greatest rock spectacle ever. However, all of these ambitions came to an abrupt end after Rhoads was killed in a plane crash weeks later on March 19, 1982. On a property owned by the Calhoun Brothers Tour Bus Company, there was an airstrip with helicopters and small planes. Without permission, tour bus driver and private pilot Andrew Aycock took a single-engine Beechcraft F-35 plane registered to Mike Parton. Looking back on that tragic day, Aldridge recalled, "I remember that we had been traveling, of course like we did every night. We were coming through the South on our way to Florida, and we were going to stop at the coach company. The bus driver, who was also a pilot, lived there because his bus company was based there. He said to us several times, 'When we stop there, I'll take you guys up for a little joyride.' I was not interested at all because I travel for a living, and the last thing that I want to do in my spare time is get on an airplane. Plus, this guy had been traveling all night and had no business flying an airplane. We arrived there early in the morning and I was still in bed, and I could hear the plane flying around. When they landed, I could hear someone saying, 'Randy, you should go.' So Randy and Rachel, who was our wardrobe lady, decided to go. Rachel was Sharon's father's maid. She was a black lady in her mid-50s with a heart condition. The last time I saw Randy was when he walked down the aisle of the bus and flung open the curtains to my bunk. He grabbed me to wake me up and said, 'Tommy, come on, let's go for a ride.' I said, 'Randy, I don't want to go up in that silly airplane right now. And I tell you, nobody has any business going up there. The guy has been driving all night and has no business being up there flying around.' He said to me, 'Oh, come on.' Again, I said no. So Randy and Rachel went up. I could hear them flying around. I had just gotten up. I poured some milk into my tea and was stirring it when all of a sudden there was this huge smash on the roof of the bus, right above where I was standing. I immediately smelled fiberglass and all of these weird smells. I was still half asleep. I went running outside and yelling at everyone and asking what happened. All that I could hear was, 'They hit the bus.' I couldn't see the airplane. The bus was parked in front of the home, which was very strange because the home and the runway were out in the middle of nowhere. There was this landing strip and then this home which had a circular driveway in front of it. Then there was nothing but woods around. The bus was parked in front of the home, and the tip of the wing hit the bus, and then the plane dove down into the garage of the house. After leaving the bus and hearing what everyone was saying had happened, I turned around and realized at that point that the plane had indeed hit the bus, though I was still trying to find the plane. I couldn't find it. All of a sudden, I see all this black smoke coming off the roof, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they hit the roof of the house. I went running around, and the garage door was open. I realized at that point that the plane was in the garage. I could almost see it. I started to go into the garage, and at that point, it just exploded. It blew me completely backwards, and it singed the hair on my eyelashes. It was a huge explosion. I jumped up and realized that now the entire house was on fire. So I ran around the house to see if anyone was inside. I went up to the front door and turned the knob. It wasn't locked, so I just walked inside. There was this old man sitting there, and I startled him really good. He was deaf, but I didn't know that at the time. He had no idea what was going on, and here I was, this strange man in his house with black stuff all over my hair and face. I was yelling at him, and I can only imagine what was going on through this guy's head. He finally came outside of the house, which was soon literally burned to the ground. Everyone was so frantic, angry at each other, and very chaotic. It was just terrible. We were all severely affected by it, though Rudy even more so, since he had worked with Randy so closely and he really knew Randy longer than any of us. It was through Randy that Rudy became involved in the band. It just really emotionally affected Rudy. As the band members on board tried to figure out what had happened, Sarzo recalled sidestepping broken glass in his bare feet and looking through the gaping hole in the bus to see tour manager Jake Duncan outside, rocking back and forth on the ground screaming, "They're gone, they're gone." Duncan, who had been on board the first flight, explained that although he had been concerned about the pilot's behavior, there was no sense of foreboding. It all seemed so innocent, Duncan said. When we arrived, Andy offered Don and me to take us up. I must admit it was a bit scary when he started buzzing the bus trying to wake Tommy up, but after a few attempts we just landed. That was it. I was awakened by this boom, Sarzo recalled. It shook the bus. I opened the curtain and I saw Sharon and Ozzy running out. There was a door that divided the front lounge from the sleeping area, and as we entered the lounge, there was glass blown out of the window on the passenger side of the bus, and I looked out and I saw our tour manager on his knees, but we didn't know what was going on. So I followed Sharon off the tour bus, and there's the wife of the bus driver standing frozen on the doorway of the exit of the bus. Sharon pushed her to one side, and we exited the bus. I look over where our tour manager is on his knees, and there's a colonial-style house, and the garage is on fire. I still don't know what's going on, but some pieces of information begin falling into place, and then it's revealed that they were on the plane. This helplessness, this hopelessness just overtakes me, realizing that Randy and Rachel are being consumed by the fire. Rhoads, who was afraid of flying, originally had no intention of getting on the plane. Duncan explained how the guitarist ended up on the doomed flight. Right after we landed, Andy came up to me and told me that he was going to take Rachel up for a ride, and that being aware of her heart condition, he assured me that he was going to take it easy, circle the property a couple of times, and not pull any crazy stunts. So when Randy heard that, he decided to join them so he could take some aerial shots with his camera. Keyboardist Don Airey was the only member of the band to witness the crash. I had my camera and was taking photos of the plane to give to Randy afterwards. I had my telephoto lens on and could tell there was some sort of struggle going on aboard the plane. The wings were rapidly tipping from side to side. At one point, the plane almost became perpendicular, no more than 6 feet off the ground. That's when I put down my camera and saw the plane right in front of me. I quickly crouched to avoid getting hit and looked over my shoulder and watched it clip the bus, crash into the tree, and explode on impact into the garage. Aycock's estranged wife, Wanda, had spent the previous night on the bus. Band members reported that Aycock was attempting to reconcile with her. According to witnesses, Wanda emerged from the bus shortly after the second flight took off and was standing in the doorway watching the plane as Aycock made his final approach. My conclusion, Sarzo surmised, is that Wanda was standing in the doorway of the bus, like a human bullseye, when Andy deliberately crashed the plane. Sarzo also mentions Aycock's troubled emotional state that day, worsened by the effects of cocaine and sleep deprivation. Given the struggle in the cockpit, Sarzo theorized that Rhoads' actions in the last seconds of his life may have prevented a direct hit with the bus, which potentially could have killed everyone else on board. It was later confirmed that Aycock tested positive for cocaine, while Rhoads' toxicology report revealed only nicotine. An investigation determined that Aycock's aviation medical certificate had expired, and it was reported that Aycock had been a pilot in another fatal crash 6 years earlier. Sharon had been aware of the prior crash, but never informed anyone else on the tour. In the moments after the accident, she reportedly admonished tour manager Duncan for allowing their people into a plane with a pilot who had been driving all night, telling him, "Don't you know that man had already killed one of the Calhoun kids in a helicopter crash?" Sarzo says, "The aftermath was just horrible, having to deal with reality as we're leaving the site of this tragedy. The survival guilt hit us immediately." Still feeling despondent, hours later in his hotel room, Sarzo went for a walk outside and eventually came upon a church. I'm in the very last row of the church, just trying to find some peace of mind and some answers, and I keep hearing somebody in the front really in pain, more pain than me, because I was in shock. Of course I was in pain, but I was too shocked to really feel pain. I was numb, and this person was like moaning and groaning, really in touch with their emotions. I had no idea who it was, and it got to the point where I thought, I gotta look. And then I realized it was Ozzy going through this painful experience. So we all dealt with it a little differently because Randy meant different things to everybody. With Ozzy, Randy was the person that was able to help him break away from the Sabbath shadow and come into his own. Randy to me was a mentor and a brother and the person that gave me a career by introducing me to Sharon and Ozzy. We all had different connections with Randy emotionally, but they were all wonderful. Make sure to look for part 2 inside the album, Speak of the Devil. More news at bullandbloom.com.